So here we are, brand new year. And as I've already stated, we're going to have more people sharing their stories, sharing their gifts with us, and how helping us learn how we can bring our gifts out to the world through our stories, through our lives. And I'm so excited to welcome my first guest, Kim Woods, who I have now known for just over 2 years, I think.
That's crazy.
First met, and I've been working with you for almost a year now, about 10 months. So super excited to have you come and talk to us about intuition. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. Kim, why don't you tell us who you are and what you do?
Okay, as you mentioned, I'm Kim Woods, and I'm so happy to be here, Kelly. It's going to be so much fun during this podcast. And my story about intuition is that I didn't know, like, and trust myself enough to handle a catastrophic event that happened. And unfortunately, it was when my son was born, and he was born with significant issues. And I was spending so much time following, like doctors' predictions and therapists and advocates and everybody else's voice other than my own. And finally, I think I got desperate enough, quite frankly, I think I got desperate enough. And so I realized I needed to follow my own intuition, because when I recognized that the strategies that they were coming up with, or what the doctors were saying about my son, he wouldn't throw and catch a ball, he wouldn't be able to walk up the stairs naturally, he wouldn't have a normal social life, I just said, this is not something that we're going to do. This is not a path we're going to pursue. And so I did trust myself enough, thankfully, to follow my gut, to follow my instinct, and say, we're gonna absolutely get rid of like any of the skill building or any of these solution sets that people are coming up with, and we're gonna rewire his brain. And we did. So for me, we got these amazing results, and it was so transformative because when I was going through that intuitive exploration, if you will, I combined Eastern practices with Western methods, and it was the combination of the two that was life-changing. He is a completely typical junior in college. He has no issues. He's a great athlete. He has a sense of humor. He has a great social life. So defied all of the quote unquote knowledge, that, rational, logical pathway, and followed my intuition and said, no, we're going to do something completely different. And we did. And it worked.
So before we dive into like what all the nitty gritty about intuition and then how you use it in business and help other people to use it in business, I would love to know, like, when you got that diagnosis from all the experts and the knowledge that was out there, you keep talking about you followed your intuition and stuff, but most people would just kind of listen to those experts because we're not medical experts. They have way more education, schooling, knowledge. What was it that made you say, wait, there's more?
So
and I don't want to accept this.
And this will get to a tip, because we're going to explore intuition a little bit. Your body will react. You'll be sitting there listening to somebody, and if you're actually reading your own, like, how do I feel? What does this sound like to me? Do I believe what this person is saying? Do I believe what they're predicting? When you're asking yourself those questions and you're allowing your body or your heart to answer for you, not your mind will say exactly what you said, Kelly. They're experts. They've been doing this for a number of years. They know more than I do. When you get rid of that voice and you listen to your heart and your belly, then you're just not gonna feel right. It just didn't feel right. And so I'm sure it wasn't as graceful as an approach as I would have wanted it to be. I talked to a lot of people. I went down avenues that we didn't end up pursuing. I ended up getting a million, quote unquote, new age, energetic healing certificates and whatnot, just exploring everything. And so it was a very patchwork, awkward approach at first, but yet each time I made a shift or made a little tiny, like, just different decision, it opened up a new doorway, it opened up a new pathway. And then finally, and again, this is where the trust comes in. I had to trust myself for 8 years before we got lasting results.
Oh,
And it
wow.
was something that I just believed. I literally just believed. I believed it wholeheartedly that we were going to be able to get transformation in a ways that actually no one talks about it. No one said it could happen. No one would have ever, kind of dove into the ship with me, if you will, but I just wouldn't stop.
Right. So it's not that you just negated the experts. you did your own research, you tested things out, and you ultimately found the right path. And your son is, as you said, living and being a normal 20-year-old.
Exactly. 100%. He's even working in the company, which is hilarious. So you can see him on lives for yourself, everybody. Nick Woods, just go find him online. He's working with the team. But I will say there were some moments though, because there were some moments, like I remember one moment where, he was like about 3 and I was in this gastroenterologist office, and she was talking about these extraordinarily invasive procedures just to explore something. And it was going to be just a horrific experience. And literally, I just thought to myself, what could be different? And I just got this impression of go to an acupuncturist. We hadn't been to an acupuncturist. I didn't know what that meant, but I found one. We went, and in one session, his esophageal issues were totally healed.
Wow. Okay, so that leads us perfectly into a definition of what is intuition, because it's a word we hear a lot, especially now. But a lot
Exactly.
of people are like, I don't really know what that is.
Oh, 100%. And this is why it's so problematic, because it's kind of like the common cold, right? I know I'm going to compare intuition to the common cold, but it's going to work because there are so many different ways. There's so many unique things that we just give this blanket term to. So I like to peel it away. And this is why I talk about instinct. And then I talk about knowing yourself, liking yourself, and trusting yourself, because that gives us pathways or corridors to go down. So your instinct is the first way that your intuition makes itself known. Because Kelly, unfortunately, we first of all, we're all intuitive. Every single person in the world is intuitive. So just knowing that and just saying, I'm intuitive. Okay, what does that mean? It opens the door for the instinct to then come in, because your gut instinct will be a yes or no. Gut instinct isn't going to have a conversation with you. It's not going to give you a message. It's not going to be nuanced. It's going to be that feeling, that inkling that it's either a yes or a no, and the no is always stronger.
Okay.
So when you feel that, and it's unfortunately, gut instinct is not exactly right. People feel it in different parts of their body. Hands could tingle, the back of your neck, could those chills in the back of your neck. Yes, it could be a feeling in your gut. It could be like a sensation running through your body. A lot of people get chills. A lot of people just get a flash of a knowing, but it's usually in the negative. Should I hire this person? Should I go in this direction? Should I go on this date? And you get this little like there's just this little follow it, like literally say, oh, okay, maybe not. Maybe I shouldn't. And then if you start following it, now your intuition has like literally, now that's the door that's open. And then you can then start creating a little bit more space for your intuition. Because your intuition, you've probably negated it your whole life.
I was just going to say that my guess is that most people have suppressed or ignored or negated their own intuition because they don't trust it, or they've been told. I mean, so I have a funny story of, I used to have dreams where people died in my dreams. And ultimately the next day I would get a phone call or a message saying someone died that had the same relationship to me, but not the person that was in my dream. So if I dreamt that an uncle died, it was a different person that I called uncle or something like that. And so around the third time that I had a dream, I remember calling my mom up at her office and saying, so have you talked to grandpa lately? How's he doing? And she's like, stop it, you're a witch. Like, she literally said that to me. And so I haven't had a dream like that since.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's usually accusatory. And here's the thing, the adults in our lives are not trying to do us harm or do anything wrong. It's just they can't see it. They don't want to believe it, or they haven't listened to their own intuition, so they don't appreciate it. And here we are, depending on the ages, a lot of times it happens when we're like 3 or 4. And we will actually see something. We might legit see somebody who's passed, or we might see somebody's aura, or we might see a color or see something in a tree that other people don't see. And then the parents, what do they say? Don't bother me with this right now. That's nonsense. And so the child then in the mind will then start saying, oh, I'm not going to bother anybody because that's nonsense. No one else sees it. And so there we go. We've just shut down our intuition. So
The
me.
more we practice negating it, the less we notice it, probably.
Exactly. And here's the thing, the intuition is subtle, whereas the instinct is to protect you. That instinct, that no, is like, that's why it's stronger. It's there to protect you. That's why I tell people to start there. Notice how that no comes into your body and then start listening to it, because that's your first impression. And again, now your intuition is like, oh, somebody's home, somebody's going to listen to me. Yay. And your intuition will then start coming. And here's the other thing, it's a whisper. It's not this big long story of 3 sentences. That's not it. It's like this hint of a whiff of a what, maybe. And so for most times people will say meditate, and that's cringeworthy for a lot of people. Or they'll say do yoga or exercise or go out in nature. Again, a lot of what we've done though is like your beautiful podcast, like we entertain ourselves, right? So we might bring a friend, we might be listening to something, we might be on the phone. We don't really give ourselves those silent moments that our intuition can play, which is why a lot of times people get messages during dream space, because
That
you're
makes
available.
sense. So
Right?
let's say people who are watching or listening to us right now, they're like, okay, I'm going to start listening. I'm going to start paying attention to those gut instincts. Um, that yes or no, that strong yes or no, particularly the strong no. So then how do people use that?
Right. That's a perfect thing, because I like to give people tools in order to be able to use it. So here's the thing. The mind is going to get in your way, by the way, because your mind loves running the show. Your mind is like, I have full reign, and I've had full reign for decades, probably, right? So the mind does not want to share the space with the intuition until you get really good at both of those. But that's a whole different conversation. If you want me to have an advanced conversation with intuition with you, I'll be more than happy to do that. But for right
Next
now,
time.
right
Next
next
time we come back. Yeah.
exactly. But for right now, we're just looking for the mind to be a little bit quiet, so that your intuition has space. So I like to give people more information. This is why I do astrology. This is why I do the card readings. This is why I quote unquote I'm an oracle, because as your mind is opening up to the possibility of something being, oh, it hasn't happened yet, or it's unknown, or it's a mystery. I don't see that. How do I know? I'm just going to have a little bit of a belief or a leap of faith. That also gives your intuition space, which is beautiful. The other thing is dropping into your heart space. How are you feeling? Yes, feelings. I'm going to say it, feelings. Right. So again, there's a lot of times that the hair on your arms will stand up, or you get these little shivers. And everybody's had this circumstance. You've walked into a restaurant, or you've walked into just a place, and somebody has just had a fight, and you just don't feel right. Like you don't know why, it just doesn't feel right. Listen,
Yeah.
it's your intuition. It's absolutely your intuition, because until we can trust it, we have to learn that it's here. We have to practice using it, and we have to give it, it's a conversation. So we have to give it those moments of conversing. And so this is why we did the Oracle deck, because that's the #1 tool that we could give people, that it didn't have to be me in their ears all the time, right?
Right.
That they could say, I wonder, ask a really provocative question, or even could start with easy questions. You'll get information through these cards, and then you can start opening up your mind to the answer. And that also invites the intuition in.
Right. So you talk about being an intuitive business strategist. So why is it that intuition and strategy together are so important, particularly when it comes to business? But I'm going to guess with our whole lives.
It's with your whole lives. And this is what I tell to my wildly intuitive people. If you're sitting on a mountaintop going like hum diddy dum, and you don't do anything with the information, who cares? Right? Like, that's so great. You got a massive epiphany and you wrote it in your journal. Maybe you didn't even. So what? I know it sounds terrible, but there's witness that wants to be, bared, or like, seen and heard, right? So there's a reason why you're getting these messages, or you're getting these inklings, or you're getting these creative flashes of brilliance, if you will, because that's what happens when you start really using your intuition. Like, people say to me, like, how do you create so much? I just literally pluck it from the sky. It just literally lands right on my desktop. because I'm always connected to my intuition. So it's so much fun. Like A, it's so much fun. And then B, when you start having those beautiful conversations with it, the reason why strategy matters is because bringing it out into the world is a thing that really matters. Like, who cares if I were amazingly intuitive and I was sitting again on a mountaintop and these oracle cards came through, for example, which those are completely channeled. So what? If I didn't actually put together a plan, put it on a timeline, schedule it out, figure out how it's going to fit in with our tool set, figured out why people were going to want to use them, figured out what the exact audience for them was, then they wouldn't have come to be.
Right. So a big part of that obviously is the saying yes when it
Yes.
comes to you. But you've touched on this throughout our conversation thus far, is the know, like, and trust piece. And so what does that have to do with your intuition?
Yeah. So here's the deal. So I've heard so many people tell me that they can't meditate, or because their minds won't quiet. And so I've done things with, we get the body involved, or we get the heart involved, or we do guided meditations, or we do all these different things. We give people all these different tools. And yet life is too active. Like people's energy is moving forward, and they want to progress, and they want to be able to take action. And so when I talk about someone knowing, liking, and trusting themselves, turning that, traditional marketing and sales factor of customers need to know, like, and trust you, people lean in and they say, tell me more. What does that look like? Right? It's a little bit more active. And so when we go down literally heart, mind, will, know, like, trust, honestly, we are opening you up to your intuition without lots of meditation and without yoga. Not that those are great ways to do it. I'm just looking for another way in, because if I can get it a way in for you to be able to use your intuition, I'm going to take it.
So it's a little bit more like a more accessible and easier way for people to start using, paying attention to, noticing, and then using their intuition.
Absolutely. Yeah, it gives them, I love how you said that. It gives them a little bit way to imagine and open up to wonder. It gives them a way to step into like how energy works for them. Again, I talked about going into a meeting or going into a restaurant or something. That's real. I mean, this stuff is real. And then when I talked about the creativity piece, that relates to money too, to really going in and trusting. Because when you get into that trust level, you're actually operating at the law of attraction, money attraction level.
Well, and who doesn't want what money can bring into our lives, which is more freedom, the ability to help other people, which, I mean, I'm just going with the selfless part of like,
Yeah.
we want to be able to do more for people. We want to be able to impact more people. So when someone works with you, what kind of results do you get, and how does intuitive strategy factor into making money?
Yeah, so I know, right? Because that seems like, wait a minute. First of all, when you're following your intuition, you have your number one advisor and guide right there with you all the time. It's like a consigliere, right? So you are literally you're making smarter decisions, you're able to make them more effectively, and you're able to stick to them. So now you're following your own inner guidance, you're following your own pathway, if you will. So your sales model is different than my sales model. Your way of attracting people is different than my way of attracting people. So when you're standing in your own, I always call it like your own nest, like all your own energy, that's where people then will flock to you. That's where you'll get noticed in the marketplace. That's where you'll be able to make the greatest impact. Now, client results that we've gotten, all right, I'll give you a few money results because those are easy to quantify. We just had a woman who was making $750 a month, and she just is making now $25,000 a month, and she's consistently sticking to it, because that's the thing. So if I gave her a method and a sales model, then it wouldn't be consistent for her, because the way I do it is different than the way she does it.
Right.
But because we gave it to her and I was able to, because I download business models and whatnot for people. So because I was able to do that with her, she was able to embody it. And now she's on fire. It's wonderful. That's just recent. I had another client, the Thanksgiving week, $122,000 in sales. And she left me a Voxer saying, you know what? I went to that conference and I would have normally positioned myself at this level, but because you've been working on me stepping into my power and claiming my gifts, I was able to operate at a much higher level. And I had all these different conversations and people flocked to me. It was just in 1 week.
I love that. And it just, what's coming out of that for me is less about business strategy and more about valuing what's already within us and knowing what's right for us and our path.
That's definitely true. But if you don't have the strategy to include in that, you aren't going to actually make progress that's consistent. So it is the combination of the two. But you're right. We don't do business strategy as what's your mission, vision, and values. We do the castle building, and we do the value trees, and we do the goddess, and because we're looking to bubble it up inside of you so that you can then bring it forth in ways that are unique to you.
And truly, the word that keeps coming to mind for me is embody it.
Yes.
I think you often use wear it.
Yes.
Right?
Right. Isn't that so true though? Because if you're not wearing it, then someone, and actually this is really funny. My team's not gonna be happy, but I'm gonna tell. So they decided they wanted to do sales calls, right? I love them. And they're not ready to do sales calls. Okay. So we decided to give free calls, literally just did it this morning. So much fun. And so we had sales training practice. Oh my God. They're cute. No. So I kept saying to them, what are you wearing? This is like, how do we wear this? What are we talking about? And it was a 2-hour, training session. And they were all like, yeah, no, I don't. I'm like, I know, that's fine. You're not wearing it yet. Because when you're wearing it, you're able to respond to the other person. You're able to meet them where they are. You're able to open yourself up and listen, right? And for me, I could say intuitive, I could say consultant, I could say strategist, all same things. I am there to serve you, with you. And I am there to lead you from the front, but then guide you and then give you all the tools that you need to then enter your life in the new way, right? If I didn't start that initial conversation by really listening to you and by really connecting with you, that would make our work far less than what it could be. But if I didn't know exactly what I could do and exactly the right solution for you, I wouldn't be able to recommend it. I recommend one thing on a sales call. I don't recommend like, oh, hey, there's 5 things. What do you think?
Right.
You get one.
And so I feel like I know that we could talk about this forever because it's a subject that fascinates me and that I always want to know more about. But I feel like a lot of our listeners are maybe more at the beginning stages.
Right. Yeah.
So 2 things that I want to ask you before we wrap up. First, how do people work with you and where's that beginning place? And second, just to leave people as they're finishing this podcast or watching us on YouTube with a couple of tips or strategies that they can start using now to tap into their intuition.
Yeah, absolutely. The way you want to start working with us is by taking our free quiz. So it's literally knowyourlifequiz.com. And it's going to give you your intuitive type, which assesses how you know, like, and trust yourself. So it's really almost like a personality assessment, but it's really a desires assessment for you. How do you like to live your life? And then based on that, we give you lots of tips and tools and things based on your type. So that will give you a little bit more flavor. The other thing is you can join our free Facebook group, our Power Up Intuition, because we're in there all the time, helping you, giving you tons of tips. We're just launching a whole Wisdom Wednesday. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be so much fun. So
and I can vouch for the fact that both that quiz, highly illuminating in terms of like, yes, that's me. Mm-hmm. But secondly, that you guys are so involved in that Facebook group and there's so much great stuff and people can pick and choose what resonates for them.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And so for a tip, okay, say you're brand new to this and you're like, okay, I know that this is true, but I don't know how this is true for me. I want you to do 2 things. One is I want you to become observant. Just observe. You don't have to close down your brain to do that. You can just become more present and more observant and really go into the yes or no. How do I feel yes in my body? How do I feel no in my body? Literally, you can literally sit, you go on a walk, you could sit in silence with your tea or coffee and just feel both those sensations in your body. Then I want you to remember a time where you either followed your gut instinct or didn't follow it. because what you're doing right now is you're like literally knocking on the door to your intuition and you're saying, okay, you know what, I'm ready. Right? I'll give you three. Then the third thing I want you to do is I want you to have an affirmation every morning saying, I am intuitive,
Mm.
because you are. And even that will just like, your intuition will be like, oh, hello, my friend.
I love that because, and also those tips are something that anybody can do. And it doesn't mean a huge investment of time. It's not like you have to set aside half an hour of your day and be like, okay, I'm going to be grounded and centered and.
It's not going to work. You're not going to do it. It's not going to be sustainable. I love tips that fit in your back pocket. The other thing you could do, I'll give you 4 tips. The other thing you do is when you're in the shower, because you're doing something else, your mind is occupied. I'm washing my hair, right? You notice the flashes of brilliance that you get. You solve a problem. You figure out how you want to talk to somebody or whatever, right? That's your intuition.
I can't, it's so funny. I laugh when you say the shower because I can't tell you the number of times I would be writing papers for college and university, and I'd try for weeks to get it done ahead of time. And everything I had, I'd throw out. It'd be like crumple it up, throw it out. And then a few days before it was due, usually, I'd be in the shower and the first line would come to me. And then I could write the whole thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And why? Because your mind was occupied, like, oh, I'm washing my face. Right. And then all of a sudden your intuition's like, hello, zoom. And that's the thing. It zooms right in. Right. So yeah, you definitely want to create space for this though. And again, we want to give you these tips that were really quick, but I will tell you that you can create a multi-million-dollar business when you use your intuition, combining it with strategy. For reals. I haven't just done this once. I've done this many, many times. So there's your candy, right? Like
Right?
here's the reward.
Yeah. So just to encourage everybody in the audience, wherever you're finding us, is take the time to do these little tips that will help you start paying attention to your intuition. And I'm going to ask you right now, you don't have to say yes or not, but I want to have you back maybe 6 months down the road where we can take that next step.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, because
Awesome.
there's a million steps, right? We have programs, we have memberships, we've got one-on-one, we've got all the things. So we have all the things. But when you start with those free, the quiz and that group, and just get a little taste. Just see what you like.
Perfect. So if you've listened to this whole thing on YouTube, on the podcast, or seen anything on our Facebook page, we will have all the links to the quiz, to Kim's page on Facebook, the free group, to your website, anything that they want to be able to find you, follow you. And let's just hope that more people start trusting their intuition, understanding it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know the intuition right now is like, yay.
Thank you so much for being here. You know how much I love what you do and how much I've grown from it. So I'm so excited to finally have you here.
I
Thank
know.
you.
Thank you so much, Kelly. This is awesome.